As is common for me during the start of the year, holiday time, all of that, I am in the process of completely gutting a lot of the infrastructure of my studio, my workspace here, and recalibrating for the new year, for the way that I expect to work this year, for the things that I expect to focus on, for where my mind's at. And this is admittedly a kind of flawed strategy, given that where my mind is at right at this moment does not necessarily represent where it will stay all year. Regardless, that's what I'm focusing on, and I'm having to swallow a kind of painful truth. And that's giving up on the way that I used to game, the way that I idealize playing video games. This seems like a really silly thing to even focus on so much, but it is kind of at the core of my workspace, of my work, of how I drive the way I lay things out. Behind me back there is my console tower of power. Give it a little rotate there. It's actually two towers. It used to be one big tower, and then I ended up needing to shrink it for various reasons. It's got, what do we got? Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2, 3, 4, and 5. All hooked up to a component switcher or HDMI switcher for the newer consoles, RetroTink 4K for the retro consoles, and I also have a feed coming from the game room side of my setup here, where I have a big CRT and some other consoles. I don't really have any other setup. I basically just pick one at a time. I built this setup around this time last year. I was reconfiguring things again, and last year or the year before, when I built these divider walls to divide up my space a little more, I needed a solution to still be able to have games over here to capture. Because I was under the impression I'd be doing more game streaming and captures for videos and things like that. And the reality is, even as I recalibrated with the second half of 2025 here, I'm not using this setup. The CRT over here you might see, that is just for me to turn on Toonami or G4 marathons or whatever and relax. It can be put anywhere close by, that's not important. But the consoles and all the cable routing has honestly only proven to be a headache. And I've gone full circle with this at this point, because used to I got really annoyed whenever I wanted to capture stuff and I'd have to hook everything up and go through the hassle, and it added a ton of friction, which meant delays in my production, delays in my creative process, and it just added roadblocks that I didn't want. So I spent years building these complex setups, often in the background, not the focus of my videos, but building these setups where I had every console hooked up possible to switchers and scalers and everything, and then I'd dumb that down a little bit and then build a little bit more. On the game room side, I've just got it set up to where I drag whatever console I want to the big TV, hook it up, and play. And I have a splitter that will run it over here to my scaler so I can capture if I want. Over here, I did limit it to a handful of consoles. It looks a little inflated with the PS2, 3, 4, but like most of that is redundant. The PS4 is just there for that PS4 video. The domino that started this effect was actually that PlayStation 5. I am taking my PlayStation 5 into the house. I'm not going to have it here in the studio anymore. It's 5 years old now. It's a little late to the party for that. We've been gaming on the PlayStation 4 Pro in the house whenever we play PlayStation games. So my wife and I playing Horizon Zero Dawn, for example. We're just playing on the PS4 Pro, and it's fine. But we have hit a roadblock now where my kiddo is in love with Astrobot. He loves this game so much, and he wants to share it with his mom. And his mom, my wife, does not really want to come out here and be cramped in this kind of setup to play the game. It's time to pull the PlayStation 5 into our family setup, to the TV. Now I'm going to rewire things over there so that I have a better HDMI switcher and can split it over to still capture stuff so I can still make videos. That's what I do. But it's going to be a shared console. And as I remove that and all the components up for that from the setup, I really start to kind of be forced to take a look at the way that I game now, where my priorities are, because my priorities aren't having the coolest battle station or having all the consoles set up for capture. My game time is not a whole lot in here anymore. For those who haven't followed me for a long period of time or seen my main channel videos or whatever, my studio is a two and a half car garage that was already pre-insulated and wired up, that we installed HVAC in so I could have temperature, climate control, and I put in carpet tiles and made it my studio. It's taken on many forms over the past 5 years since I moved in. It was one big open space for a very, very long time. And then I finally started dividing it up so I could have a nice, clean little game room set for these videos and for me to actually play on with my kiddo and to manage things a little better. And then this messy side is my arts and crafts, my tech videos, all of that kind of stuff. For the first few years, I had my kid in 2020. We moved into this house at the end of 2020. For 2021 and 2022, I did most of my gaming in here. I would come in here to play retro games, to decompress. At night, I would spend a lot of nights working, so whether I was streaming or capturing or just playing, I would come in here and play. On PC, on newer consoles, for capture card tests, on retro consoles, I'd spend a lot of time in here. I needed me time, I needed to balance that. I still do need that, but now that my kiddo's in school, all of that time is limited during the school day. Sometimes I'll come out and work at night or on a weekend. Sometimes my work merits that and I need to. But broadly speaking, I get that window. And yeah, I can game in here. Absolutely. I've recorded stuff. I've even recorded stuff with the PS5. I did the Elden Ring video. And I will continue to play games on the PS5 and capture them for the channel. But my primary game time is not here anymore. Gaming is something I share with my family these days. I'm playing tons of co-op games with my wife. We are very slow to get through games, but we're playing through them. Baldur's Gate 3. My main playthrough is with my wife. We've still got to finish that up. Horizon Zero Dawn. We're about to roll credits. Playing through it together. We're going to play the second one together. My Mass Effect and my Dragon Age Origins runs were alongside my wife. We love sharing these experiences together. And then the smaller games like Astrobot, I'm sharing with my kid. And I've been really looking at the games I want to play, and I've started to realize how many of those I would rather have as shared experiences. Both because I want to share them with my family, either with my kiddo as a fun experience to share with a kid, or with my wife just to play together. But also, that's just where most of my gaming can be. If I'm gaming solo, 90% of the time at the moment, it's on my Steam Deck. Because that's where I can fit in quick little game sessions in Ball Pit or Warriors Abyss or Jotun Slayer or Vampire Survivors, whatever. In between things, when I do have me time in the house or right before bed. And that doesn't mean I can't game at my normal setups, but due to where I am in my life right now, I'm not a solo gamer anymore. I'm not in here in my box, in my separated space, gaming by myself. And I need more storage in here. I need more organization and storage. And I needed to start sacrificing things for it. I was going to start cutting out one of my work surfaces that I have against this wall here. And I just wasn't liking it, even though I'm not fully using them to my original expectations. But I realized this stuff back here, at least the gaming stuff, is a perfect sacrifice for me to put in a couple new drawer units that I had. And actually turn it into functional space. I continue to build. I talk a lot for these sorts of things. A lot of it has been about me, but I think this is something that many people struggle with. As we age, as we go through life transitions, we hold on to and cling to the way we did things before. And it's important to recognize that you're in that struggle and that maybe you do miss something about the way you did it before. But it's also important to realize how you do things now and why you do them that way. And the fact that you maybe chose to do them that way and why. I think, especially when it comes to online content, videos, Reddit posts on Battle Station, gamer setup kind of places, social media, whatever, it's very common to see so many people, especially mid to late 20s, early 30s dudes, but it applies to everyone. So many of us spend our lives building monuments to our ideas, to our ideals, to the way that we want to live or do things. But it's so much harder to actually live that way day to day. And that's not a value judgment. If you take it in a broader, like spiritual, religious, whatever kind of context, it might sound like a value judgment. But in this case, it's just an acceptance of reality. My monument to my ideals and the way I think or I want things to be are these cool gaming setups where I get to spend all this time immersed in my favorite video games, having these gaming experiences with these brilliant setups and everything at my fingertips ready to go. And the reality is that is not how I live my life day to day. Not because I'm failing at something, not because I don't want to necessarily, but because that's not where my life is at right now. And in part because I don't want to, because I do want to share so much with my family. I don't want to just be in my box all alone gaming and ignoring them or something. And it's time to tear down those monuments and to rebuild infrastructure that you're actually going to use day to day. Not gonna lie, this kind of process is definitely bumming me out a little bit. The original Tower of Power thing I had going on was absolutely emulating a setup I had in like 2011 when I was in, actually no, it would have been 2007, 2008. So middle school, high school, mid-high school, where I had all my consoles hooked up to a little AV switcher and an old CRT my parents had. I was definitely emulating that here. And I'm not doing that anymore. It's kind of funny though, because seeing the CRT in the middle now with these two shelves, obviously nothing's perfect yet. I gotta figure out how the storage is gonna be used. I've gotta figure out where the end table that was here that the CRT was on is gonna go elsewhere in the studio on top of the other unit that I had bought for organization. I still have some things to figure out, but seeing the CRT in the middle here, I'm kind of like, well, I could dedicate a couple shelves to a couple consoles, run that to the RetroTink and to the CRT. That's some crazy splitter configuration. And then I have a little retro gaming thing for when I decompress and for capture. So it's hard to make these decisions. It's hard to commit when I want so desperately to use the thing that I had built. And I build so many setups in this space. Like if you've watched any of my main channel, Epos Fox videos, you know I'm constantly building setups. And this year I want to use them. I just want to use them. I just want to do the things. And I had mentioned and not finished my thought before, I've come full circle in that I spent forever building these setups, trying to have the all-in-one setup and not had the time to use it. I've come full circle in that I'm back to that thing I hated of having to pull out an individual console, hook it up and use it. I want to do, because something always goes wrong in all the switchers and wiring and whatever, having everything hooked up. And it's a nightmare figuring that out every time. And just like we talk about on the podcast and I talk about on this channel, the intentionality, the deliberation, that feeling of choosing a physical game off a shelf and putting it in a console feels so much better than picking from an infinite list. I think at this point, picking the console I'm gonna capture with a reason why I'm doing it and putting it like, I may leave a shelf or reserve the top of this with the RetroTink here or something so I can just take a console, hook it up, have everything together, and then use it. I think that's gonna feel a lot better in the long run. So I'll have a main channel video about the whole sense of, probably not the whole, but a lot of the infrastructure changes I'm making in the studio, and then you'll see various things in the setup as I get it cleaned up. I have PS3 games stacked knee high. I've got my PS5 and PS4 games I gotta take into the house with the console. I gotta figure out where all the consoles are going. I got a lot of problems to solve. Videos might be a little slow, at least with the on-camera stuff, which seems to perform the best. But I'm taking a lot of time at the start of this year to restructure things and to really reflect on what I wanna make and how I wanna be seen moving into this year. 2026. Kind of crazy.
All right, I had to come in here and add a note. I'm feeling my heart be very full the next day, as I was feeling pretty bummed and just in my head a lot about this change, about erasing my childhood setup, recreation, monument, whatever you want to call it. And as I was wrapping up, my wife texted me that my kiddo was playing Mario Kart for the first time. And I ran in there and we played some two-player Mario Kart Double Dash. And this is why I'm doing this. This is why my priorities have shifted. Playing with my kiddo for his first round of Mario Kart, and he improved markedly from when he first started playing till later. He still really struggles with steering. Double Dash has some pretty loose steering anyway, but he improved a ton. and he was having a blast, kicking his feet, giggling, loved throwing things at enemies. Like, this is where my priorities are at the moment, and I am okay with that.
If you made it this far in the video, I will tease. I have launched a new blog. This is potentially not just going to be me. I will be accepting guest contributions on a merit basis, as I've already had someone mention, a couple people actually mention interest, which is wild. But the domain is literally gamer.dad. And while it won't exclusively be about gaming as a parent, I think that's the fun frame that has reframed everything in my head with regards to thinking about how I game and how my life intersects with the hobby. And so that blog will have some thoughts, even about this video that may not have made it in the video itself. I have it linked below. Most people won't see the description, so you'll only know about it if you made it this far in the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sitting with me for this. I know I didn't come to a sense of completion. We don't have closure here, because frankly, it's going to take me all of January to clean up the studio again. And I hate that I keep ending up in this point and trying to combat that as part of why I'm making these changes so I can keep trying to get ahead of it. But I'm hoping we come out the other end with something better. Remember to be kind. Rewind. Okay. Remy wants to say hi. Say hello. She keeps talking. She's mad that I'm ignoring her since I haven't been in here since it's the holiday. Hello. Hello. Anger kitty. Arrgh.